Mem Dalet Amud Aleph sounds good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Okay,
44A1.
right. Okay. Right. Ein Halacha Karabin Gamliel is where we sort of left off. O Dilma Bedelo Malu Gavre Askinen. Okay. Or perhaps when there were not enough people. Okay. So the question is, the young student, right, had walked beyond the Tchum, and to be able to get him back, to walk inside the Tchum, what was to be done? So the suggestion was you make a group of people gather around him, okay, to sort of make an enclosure, which would allow him to walk back at least into the Tchum. Okay?
Well, how did they get out of the Tchum then?
They're holding each other's hands.
Okay.
So in other words, it's sort of like they're extending. Some are inside the Tchum and some are outside. Okay,
Right.
so that's like there, as we're going to get to another section in the Gemara soon, we're going to see that it deals with this overlapping Tchumim area concept. Okay? So that's where it really is what it's leading to. Okay? So on the other hand, we saw Rabbi Eliezer says no, that you can only, if somebody's outside the Tchum, he can only go at the most 4 amos. And even then, is it going to be that the person is in the middle, so he can only really go 2 amos in either direction? So according to Rabbi Eliezer, if he's more than 2 or at the most 3 amos beyond the Tchum, he's af tzalachas, right? So that's the point that the Gemara is leading us to. Okay? Odilma b'delo malu gavri askinan. We're talking about a situation where there aren't enough people. V'kaima baile, and therefore that's what, in effect, Rav Chisda is asking Rav Nachman. Halacha ka Rabbi Eliezer. Is the law then like Rabbi Eliezer, who says all he's got is 2 amos to go, that he can walk? O ein halacha ka Rabbi Eliezer. Or is the law not like Rabbi Eliezer? Pshita, isn't it obvious, says the Gemara, B'delo malu gavrei askinan, that we're talking about a situation where we don't have enough people to form this, let's call it a circumference, this circle around him. The isa gadatach b'demalu gavrei askinan, because if we were saying that you had enough people, ma'it baile, why would he even have to ask the question? Ha'amar Rav, and did not Rav say, right, halacha ka Rabban Gamliel, badar, uvesar, uvesvina, that the law was like Rabban Gamliel in terms of a pen or a staple or the boat, okay? Implying that, again, should be able to walk the whole area. Ela vadai b'delo malu gavrei askina. But certainly, we're dealing with a situation where there were not enough people, with the Rabbi Eliezer k'mabayile, and we're asking it according to the view of Rabbi Eliezer. Daikanami, and the Gemara says, and this we can deduce from the language as well, the ka'amar le yikanes, because the language of the story says that he may enter. Ma yikanes, what does it mean when he may enter? Lav below mechitza. That means to say that we're talking about a question of whether or not there's any partitions surrounding him. And therefore that would imply that has to be according to the view of Rabbi Eliezer, who says in that situation, all the person can do outside the Tchum is move 2 amos. So let's see what happens now. Right? Eitive Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak l'Rava. Okay? So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is going to challenge Rava with an attempt at the following example. Okay? Here we go. Nafal dufna, if the wall of a sukkah fell, lo ya'amid ba'adam behema V'kelim, a person should not put up in its place an animal or utensils. Furthermore, v'lo yizkof et hamita lefrosa lehasadin, nor can one set up a bed on the side of the sukkah in order to put a sheet on it, in other words, hang a sheet, all right, down from, let's say, the top of the bed, right? Lefi she'eino sin ohel ari b'tchila b'yom tov. Why? Because we say that one cannot make a temporary tent dwelling initially on Yom Tov, right? Ve'ein tzarich lomar b'Shabbat. And certainly we don't have to say that it applies to Shabbat. Now, what happens is we're going to see a response now, right? By Rabbah. Amarle, at amartli meha. You're going to answer me from that. Va'ana amina lach meha. And I'm going to come back and give you a response from here, namely a different text. Ose adam et chavero dofen kadei sheyochal v'yishtev v'yashen. A person may set up another human being, his neighbor, his friend, okay, as a makeshift wall so that he can eat and drink and sleep in the sukkah. V'yizkof et hamita, and he can turn over the bed, right, or set up the bed. V'yifrosa lehasadin kadei shelo tipol chama al hamet v'al ha'ochlin. And he can set up a bed with a sheet hanging down such that the sun won't come in and cause, if there's a deceased corpse, right, a deceased body, won't cause it to decay or won't cause the food in the sukkah to turn bad. So the Gemara says, Kashin ahadadi. These two texts seem to contradict one another. Right? Lo kasha. No, says the Gemara. Ha, Rabbi Eliezer. Ha, Rabbanan. No, one Braita follows the view of Rabbi Eliezer that you can't set up the bed or anything as a wall. Another Braita says was according to the rabbis. Ditnan, as we learned elsewhere in a Mishnah, okay, Pakak hachalon. Remember we learned this Mishnah, that this was the, so to speak, attached window shade, or a night, in a roof window, what do you call it? A skylight kind of thing. Okay. Does it have something to pull it down or not? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, says Rabbi Eliezer, Bizman shekashur v'talui, okay? So long as it has some sort of an attachment and one can pull it down, right? If that's the case, right? Pokakinbo, one can pull the skylight down, close it. V'im lav, and if not, ein pokakinbo, one cannot do it. The Chachamim omrim, but the sages say, bein kach uvein kach pokakinbo, regardless, okay, of whether it has an attached string coming down or not, one can close the skylight. Vaha itmar Allah, and wasn't it said about this discussion on this Mishnah? Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, said Rabba bar bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol modim she'ein osin ohel ar'i b'tchila b'yom tov. Everyone is in agreement, right, that we cannot make some sort of temporary enclosure, let's call it, initially on Yom Tov, ve'ein tzarich lamar b'Shabbat, And certainly we don't have to say this about Shabbat. Lo nechlaku ela lahosif. No, they didn't disagree except in the question of adding, okay, to it. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, ein mosifin biyom tov, ve'ein sarich lamar b'Shabbat. That Rabbi Eliezer says one is not permitted to add on Yom Tov, and certainly not on Shabbat. The Chachamim Omrim and the sages say, mosifin b'Shabbat, one may add on Shabbat, ve'ein sarich lamar biyom tov, and certainly one is able to do it on Yom Tov, right? Ela lo kasha, right? But rather, we could said there, what's our answer? Okay, ha k'Rabbi Meir. In one case, the view was according to Rabbi Meir, ha k'Rabbi Yehuda. In another case, it was according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, as was taught, asa'ah lebehema dofen lusuka. If someone made an animal as a wall for a sukkah, okay, Rabbi Meir posel, Rabbi Meir said it was invalid, the Rabbi Yehuda machshir, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's permitted. Now, why is that the case? As the Gemara goes on, Rabbi Meir, the kapasil hatam, that Rabbi Meir invalidates the use of that animal there in that case, okay, as a wall, alma lo mechitzahi. Therefore, we see he doesn't consider it a valid partition. Hachashari, but here in our case, dilav midei ka'avid. Why? Because it's not as if the person is doing anything. Okay. The Rabbi Yehuda, the kamachshir, and Rabbi Yehuda, who in the kamachshir hatam, who says that the use of that animal is an acceptable partition, alma, therefore, mechitzahi, he considers it there a partition. Hacha, but here, in our case, asar, it's forbidden. Okay? So the Gemara then says, v'tispura, is that what you're thinking? Emar, I would say, Tishamat leila Rabbi Meir behema. I would say we should learn from this that Rabbi Meir holds that the behema, okay, is a questionable kind of partition. Why? Because the animal could walk away, move away. Adam v'kelim mishamatle. But in terms of a person or utensils, could we learn that somehow they would move and not remain there? Okay. V'tu, and furthermore, Rabbi Meir aliba deman. Rabbi Meir is holding according to whom? I aliba de Rabbi Eliezer. If we say he's going to hold like the view of Rabbi Eliezer, lahosif nami asar, then to say even adding a fourth wall, let's say, to the sukkah, right? That would also be, in Rabbi Eliezer's view, forbidden. Aliba de Rabbanan. But we must say that he's raising this issue in terms of the view of the rabbis, where the rabbis say normally we only need 3 walls to make a valid sukkah. And we're talking about having to replace the 3rd wall that may have fallen down. Emar, and therefore I would say, da amre rabbanan lahosif lechatchila miyamah. And therefore I would say he's following the review of the rabbis to add. But the Gemara says, but are you talking about this initially? Ela ha vaha rabbanan. But rather we can say that those 2 braitas explaining this way. Okay? V'kelim akelim lo kasha. when we talk about use of utensils to make up a temporary wall, we don't have to say that there's a disconnect, a disagreement between them. Why? Because we can explain it ha bedofen shlishit, in one case where we say it's not viable. Excuse me. We're talking about the third wall, ha bedofen revi'it. And in another case where we say it's viable, we're talking about the fourth wall for the sukkah. Daikanami, and this we can deduce from the language also. The katani, because it taught, nafal dufna, okay? Because the wall fell, shmamina. And we learn from this that therefore there we're talking about whether it is the third wall that's required to make the sukkah kosher, or simply we could derive it as a fourth wall. Let's go on. Ella, says the Gemara on Mem Dalet Amud Beis as we continue, right? Adam kasha. But maybe with the example of a person, we still have the problem, right? Adam nami lo kasha. A person as acting as a temporary wall, says the Gemara, also does not have to be problematic. Kan ladat, kan shalomidat. In one case, we could say it's where the person does it out of knowledge, is aware, and another case where the person is not aware. Okay? Vaha, the Rabbi Nechemia bereid the Rabbi Chanilai, ladat hava. But don't we have a situation, says the Gemara, with this incident that we described, that with Rabbi Nechemia, the son of Rabbi Chanilai, it was with an awareness. The people knew that they were being used, so to speak. Shalomidat hava. No, we say it was not that they were being aware, right? Rav Chisda. Okay, what about Rav Chisda? Mihaladat hava. Okay, what about the example we had with Rav Chisda, where we said that a crowd gathered around him after the shiur, and therefore his servants could lift up items that were in the Rishus Harabim and carry it into his Rishus. Okay, what about that Mihaladat hava? Wasn't that also an awareness? Says the Gemara, Rav Chisda shalom min haminyan hava. Rav Chisda was not part of those counted to form the enclosure. Okay? So in other words, it was simply other people who had gathered around him. Okay? And therefore they weren't aware of the fact that they were being utilized in that way as a mechitza. Okay. All right. We go on now with a slightly another story, okay, regarding this issue of using people as a mechitza. Okay. Hinehu b'nei Genana. There was a certain group of people at a wedding party. Excuse me. Da'alihu maya b'mechitza shel b'nei Adam. And they had formed let's say whether it was a circle or an area, partitions, so that they could carry water, right, from one area to another area. Okay? But the people, in other words, did it, if you will, lechatchila, with intent, okay, with knowledge, with awareness. So what happened? Says the Gemara, Negedinhu Shmuel. Shmuel decided that they should be flogged, right? Malchus. Amar, im amru shalomidat. If it was said that it could only be done with a lack of awareness. Yomru ladat. Shall we say that it's permissible to do it when people are aware? Okay. And now we get another incident. Hinehu zike dahava shadyan baristaka, the mechoza. That there were certain jugs or flasks, okay, that were accidentally left behind, okay, in the ristika. Ristika is the marketplace in Mechoza. Okay? Right? And they would belong to Rava. Bahade da'ata Rava mipirka. Okay, this is the story I anticipated. Okay, after Rava was coming back from giving his lesson, A'alinhu nihale. There are a group of people that followed him, went after him. L'shavta achrite. Okay? So in other words, in that case, because there was a crowd there, right, he let those flasks be carried in. L'shavta achrite, on another Shabbos, ba'ai eilainhu, again, a crowd came up to him, right? And the servants wanted to carry in items. Va'asar laho, and he forbade them. Dahave le kiladat ve'asur. Because then the people were acting out of awareness, okay, in that second Shabbos, and he felt that wasn't appropriate, and therefore he forbade them from carrying those items in. Another story, right? Levi ahalihu le tivna. Okay, Levi allowed them to bring in straw on a Shabbat using human partitions. Okay, Zeiri as pasta. Zeiri allowed them to bring in animal fodder on a Shabbat using apparently a human, okay, partitions. Rav Shimi Bar Chia Maya, and Rav Shimi Bar Chia allowed them to bring in water. Okay, now, right, or water brought to him, right, and that's the end of that particular sugya, right? Now we get to a new Mishnah, right? And our new Mishnah is going to sort of move us in a slightly different direction, okay? Just a quick introduction and then we'll continue, okay? Let's assume that someone is traveling along the road, okay? And, okay, his intent was to get to a certain location to make that his Shabbos residence, okay? But for whatever reason, he got delayed, his donkey got sick, his camel, I don't know what, okay? However the situation is, he got delayed and he's stuck, he's a traveler, stuck on the road, and he has to make his, and it starts getting dark, Erev Shabbos. What is he going to do about making his Tchum Shabbos and his place for Shabbos? Okay, so that's what the Mishnah is going to discuss, all right, and go into it and tell us, however, that there are sometimes certain exceptions where a person can leave their Tchum also, okay, and then come back to it, right? What are those unique exceptions? We're going to see here as well. Right? Mishnah, Matnitin, our Mishnah teaches, Mi sheyatsa b'reshut, someone who went out beyond their Tchum with permission. In other words, perhaps they need to be doing a mitzvah or something else. Va'amrulo, and they said to him, Kvar ne'aseh ma'aseh, whatever it is has already occurred. Okay? Let's take a couple of examples that the Gemara is going to bring to us in a moment. A midwife, okay, may have to go to help deliver a birth. But as she's on her way out of her tchum, she's still up. The lady already gave birth.
Yeah, we don't need you anymore.
Okay? We don't need you. All right? So the Gemara Mishnah says, Yesh lo, I use a female example, but it doesn't matter. Al payam ama lechol ruach. Okay? They have, right, 2,000 ama in every direction. Im haya betoch tchum, if they were within their tchum, Ke'ilu lo yatsa. It's as if they never left their tchum. Right? What happened? That's right, they can walk anywhere. Then the Mishnah says, Kol hayotzim lahatzil. Anyone who goes out to save, right, to rescue, chozrin lemekoman. They may return to their places. Now, that question, that language in the Sefer is a little problematic. What do we mean by return to their places? Does that mean that if they went beyond the tchum, they can come back into their tchum? Is that what they're saying? We have to see. Okay. So Gemara starts off, okay, with dealing with the excuse me, the middle case. What does it mean? Im haya betoch tchum ke'ilu lo yatsa. That if they're inside their tchum, it's like they never left. Amar Rava, hachi ka'amar. Sorry. Rava says this is what it's referring to. Right? Im haya betoch tchum shelo. If he was within his, I'm going to call it his original tchum. Ki'ilu lo yatsa mitoch beito dami. It's like he never left his house. Right? That's what he's compared to. And the Gemara responds, Pshita, isn't that obvious? Mahu detema. Then what are you trying to tell us? Ho'il va'akar, akar kamash malan. We may have thought that since he uprooted himself, all right, he's uprooted and he can't go back. Kamash malan comes to teach us that's not the case. Rav Shimi bar Chia Amar, he wants to give a different explanation to that phrase in the Mishnah. Hachi Kamar, this is what it's referring to. Im hayut chumim shnatnu lo chachamim, if they gave them boundaries, let's say, that the sages had developed, muvla'in b'toch hatchum shalo, okay, and they're encompassed in his tchum, okay, right? In other words, they overlap his tchum with another. Ki'ilu lo yatsa mitchumo. It's as if he never left his own tchum. B'mai kemiflage. So what are they arguing about? Mar savar havla'at tchumim miltahi. One master holds that the overlapping of the tchumim, of the boundaries, okay, miltahi, is an acceptable thing, is a recognized principle. Umar savar lav miltahi. And the other master must hold that it is not a acceptable thing, that it is not a valid principle. Now, Amar le Abai le Rava. And so Abai questions Rava, Va'at lo tisbara, the havla'at chumin miltahi. Are you not of the opinion that overlapping tchumim is a valid principle? And so he goes on to challenge him with the following, right? Uma ilu shavat b'ma'ara. And what about a situation says Abai to Rava, when the person has to make his Sabbath residence, so to speak, in a cave. All right? B'ma'ara shebetocha arba'at alafim. Okay? And this cave, the length of the cave is 4,000 amma. Right? Va'al gaga pachot me'arba'at alafim. And the height of the cave, though, on top, the ground on top, above the cave, is less than 4,000. Right? All right? Pachot me'arba'at alafim amma. Right? So in other words, the amount of space from cave, one entrance of the cave to another entrance of the cave is clearly 4,000 amma. But the land above is less than that. Okay? Right? Above on top of the cave, the ground. Right? Lo nimtza mehelech et kula v'chutzala alpayam amma. All right? Are we going to say that the person, if he goes out one or the other entrances of the cave, cannot walk more than 2,000 amma? Right? Amar le, he said to him, v'lo shane lach ben heche de Shabbat ba'avir mechitzot mi ba'od yom. Okay? That he's saying to him, in this case, okay, how do you distinguish, okay, where the walls, where the partitions are, right, in this place, right, while it's inside the cave, while it's still day, right? Lehecha de lo shavat ba'avir mechitzot mi ba'od yom. Why? Because he did not designate, okay, these as walls, as partitions, while it was still day. In other words, he has to have designated, okay, the entire, so to speak, cave as his Shabbos residence. And in that way, if that's the case, regardless which either entrance he would go out, okay, he could have an area to walk, right? If that's the case. Vehecha de lo Shabbat lo. And where he did not begin his Shabbat residence, no. Okay, it doesn't provide that. Instead, you would have, so to speak, two separate tchum areas. One from one entrance of the cave up to a certain amount, and one from another entrance of the cave up to a certain amount. Do they really overlap or not? Right? So I'm just going to go over a little bit now on top of Mem Hey Amud Aleph. Okay. Vahatnan. But haven't we learned elsewhere in a Mishnah? Right, the following. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, says Rabbi Eliezer, Shtayim Yikanes, that according to him, one has 2 amos beyond the tchum by which he can re-enter. Shlosha lo yikanes. 3 he may not re-enter. Okay? That's the point. My love, was it not Rabbi Eliezer Latame? Aren't we saying that Rabbi Eliezer is following his own opinion? The Amar Vahu Be'emtsa'am. No, we're saying that Rabbi Eliezer mentioned this when the person was in the middle. Right? Va'arba'a amot di'ahavu le Rabbanan, and the 4 amos that the rabbis give him, kiman de mivla'im damu. There we're saying that the rabbis acknowledge that they are overlapping. V'ka'amar yikanes, and when it says that he may enter, alma havla'at tchumim miltahi. We're saying that overlapping tchumim is a valid principle, okay, and is doable. And that's where we're going to stop right there as Abai and Rava continue their discussion. Okay? That's where we'll pick up tomorrow. Right? And I suggest we make it closer to like 8:30 or so. Okay? Because given, as I said, that the davening has been taking a little long. Okay? Thank you guys for your patience. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
All right? Take care, guys.
Okay, bye.